And just say welcome to everybody. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. I was saying before a few people got here, it's a Thursday, but it feels like a Friday because tomorrow's a weekend, and it's even better because it's a 4-day weekend. So hopefully we're all feeling a little bit upbeat and energized today. So this morning's session, here's how these sessions work. I split them into 3 thirds. So the first third of this session will be me sharing some principles, some content from some of our programs, and just some ideas and possibly even tools that start to shape your thinking around the topic for the day. And the topic for today is how we think about future-proofing growth in our businesses by investing in continuous development for ourselves and our teams. Okay. And I'll get to why that's important as we go through the session. So I'll do about 15-20 minutes on that topic. Then we will open up some breakout rooms, and I'll just invite you to think about what you've heard this morning, how it fits with the approach you're taking in your businesses today, and maybe what changes you might need to make, and discuss that with your peers and colleagues on this call. And we'll do that for about 15 minutes, then we'll regroup. And I think we'll probably have about 3 breakout rooms. So then we'll just take some feedback from each of the 3 groups, and then we'll close on a theme. I've got a couple of things I'll just share with you, and then we'll wrap up by 5-2. How's that sound to everybody? Sound all right?
Yep.
Excellent. Good. Thank you. Good to see you, Steve, as well. Thanks for joining us this morning.
I got here in the end.
So let's go. So let's start with our content today. So these sessions are all about thinking time, because in the busyness of the work that we do, we're normally kind of on a treadmill. We're constantly doing things, following up on actions, managing our teams, thinking about the business. This is some time to just take your foot off the gas and just think about your business, your leadership, and what it is you want to achieve, and perhaps through a slightly different lens. That's the idea. And I talked about this morning's themes. We'll talk about what percentage of people focus on growth and development. I'll talk about that. And we'll talk about how to integrate professional development into our work and our careers, why that's important, and then how we utilize self-coaching, and that self-coaching can start to be applied to our teams as well. So let's make a start on some of the content for today. So we run this scorecard. Some of you might have taken it. This is our we've got 2 scorecards. One's a sales acceleration scorecard, which talks about sales and leadership. And then we've got a very specific leadership scorecard called the Coaching Leaders Scorecard. And I'll share some links to those later on in our session if you'd like to take them. And many of you may already have taken those scorecards. We ask a couple of questions. One question we ask, which is important, is this it's like a statement. And it says, I haven't been prioritizing my own professional development. Something always gets in the way. And the response to that statement is that 65% of people either agree or strongly agree with it. And then you'll see a further 16% neither agree nor disagree, which means they don't get to it either. So you're up at 81% of people saying, I don't make time for my professional development. So this is a real problem in businesses. And then on the right-hand side, when we think about what does professional development allow us to do, it allows us to start to think about how we see ourselves in the future. And this second statement, I have a vision for myself in the future as a world-class sales or business professional. 62% of people agree with that, okay, which is good, but that means 38% of people don't. So we've got nearly 40% of people saying I don't have a vision for myself in the future as someone who's world-class. And we know that 81% of people aren't getting around to professional development. So even if you do have a picture of yourself in the future as this world-class business professional, without putting the time into professional development, you're probably not going to get it. So we have to really think about what does this mean for our teams. And our coaching model, you might have seen me walk through this before in previous sessions. Our coach model talks about these different stages of leadership development and how as leaders we show up and lead our business teams. And we're jumping straight to the kind of final element of that today with development, thinking about this H stage in the coach model. So C is contracting, O is objectives, A is action, C is coaching for change, like a transactional, practical coaching sessions. And then the H is heroes in the making. So it's about development planning. It's about helping people see a bigger picture for themselves in the future. And that's really important because most people don't get to that without some kind of coaching or some kind of transformation from their leader. They don't often see for themselves what someone else can see in them. And that's our responsibility as leaders to help our teams to start to see that. So we think about this heroes model, and I love this quote: the future you see is the future you get. If we don't start to help our teams see something bigger, and sometimes for ourselves see greater possibility and opportunity, then we there's not a lot of chance that we're going to be able to pursue that and attain it. So we have to start to think about what goals we set for ourselves. And you might have seen this goal setting slide before. Very often, we think with goals that we're going to have this idea, set the goal, make some investment, build some great stuff, and then achieve it. And actually, that couldn't be further from the truth. Actually, there's a lot of stuff goes on. We hit challenges, we hit people that perhaps get in the way or don't want to help us with our plans. Stuff happens in our lives, things come up that we can't predict. And then when we finally get to, you're all in leadership positions, by the time you get to where you are, people on the outside go, it's all right for Justin, or it's all right for Christina, they're doing all right, they're in that position. They don't see all the stuff that happened to, the things we had to overcome to get to where you are. And without the goals to inspire us, the setbacks become major distractions and risks to our success. So setting some goals around what we want to achieve for us and our teams is really important. And there's another reason this is important. You might have heard me talk about this before, but it's a nice opportunity just to revisit this principle. There's this system in the brain called the reticular activating system. And the idea is that what this does is it helps us to block out all the noise and all the interference in our lives and really focus on what we want. And the whole premise of this is that it's triggered by setting goals. So once we decide we want something, our mind says, right, I need to keep a lookout for everything that's going to help me to achieve that. And that's the reason goal setting is so powerful, because once we've set these goals, we trigger our reticular activating system, and all of a sudden we start to look for all those opportunities. We start to create conversations, explore opportunities and different people, connections, networks, resources, all that stuff. But it only happens once we set the goal. And, in life, this happens, right? So if you decide the last time you might have changed your car, as soon as you decide you want to change, that car shows up everywhere. It's on every street. It's, your neighbor's got one. It starts to become more prevalent in your thinking. And that's your RAS, basically tuning your mind in to say you need to start to be aware of these things. So practically, how do we do this stuff? So I remember having a conversation with, so this is years ago, it's probably 20 years ago, maybe even a little longer, with my HR director, who became a mentor for me. And I was identified, this is when I was at 3M, I was identified as someone that had some talent. I went on a program, the HR director started to mentor me. And the first thing she said was, what's in your development plan? And I kind of looked at her and said, what do you mean? So she's like, well, what's in your development plan? And I had to be honest and say, what's plan? What plan are you talking about? And she said, so you haven't got a development plan. And I didn't, right? So, and up until that point, I'd been fairly successful in sales, but I hadn't really progressed my career and I hadn't really thought about it. And she and I sat down, and over a series of kind of conversations and sessions, we developed 2 plans. And I'm going to share those 2 plans with you because they've been particularly useful for me in my career. And I went from being a salesperson to actually achieving some roles that I probably didn't believe I was capable of at the time. So I went on to become the general manager for 3M's largest business in the UK within about 12 years, which is still a fair old time horizon, but probably a career progression that never would have happened if I hadn't sat down and made this plan. That was the power of it for me. And we did 2 things. We looked at strategic career development. So we looked at a plan that helped me to capture kind of some key information about myself, but then started to think about, okay, what's important to me? What's important to me in my career? What's important to me personally? What's important to me more broadly in my life? What sort of skills do I have? And what experience have I got to date? And what does my current job need from me? Okay, that was the first part of my development planning. This is kind of career planning. Then the next part was about career interest. What do I want to do next? And then what do I want to do midterm, so beyond that next job? What do I want to do long term? And then from there to kind of say, right, well, if that's what I want, what's in my development plan? And thinking about development in 3 ways. I don't know if you've heard of this principle, but I'll kind of walk you through it. They call it 70-20-10. So 70% of my development is in working and doing my job. I learn through doing, right? So as I'm doing my job, I get better at it. I sharpen my skills. I continually improve. 20% of my development is through my network, alliances, mentoring, people that I am working with and I'm looking to emulate. So 20% of my development is in that space. And then the final 10% is about formal development. So a course I might go on or a coaching program I might enroll in. And starting to think about your development in that way was really useful for me, because I went beyond just I'm going to go on a course and started to think, how do I integrate this into my work through the 70% and 20% of relationships? It's really valuable for me. And then starting to think, final few things, what do I dislike? What are the things I don't want to be doing in my career? So I wouldn't have become an analyst or someone that was kind of like a financial or too deep in financial reporting, because it just didn't interest me. It kind of used to tune me out. So I can do that stuff, but I don't like it. And then what is unique about me? What are the things that I believe I do that are unique and differentiated? And that was really useful to because we often do that about our products, our business, our proposition to customers, but we don't often do it for ourselves. So that was useful. What are my USPs? And then at the bottom here, just an opportunity to start to say, right, what are the things I want to do and when do I want to do them? So some action and timing at the bottom of this plan. And you'll see on here, we've got a couple of versions. You've got this one here, and I'll happily send these to you after today's session. This one here is an example plan, and the one on the left is a blank. So you've got an example, so you can say, okay, what sort of things go in there? And then you've got this blank that enables you to kind of think about what you might want to create for yourselves or for your teams. So that's strategic career development. That's a practical tool. Second tool that my HR director and I worked on, because that was my long-term thinking plan, was what we called a development action plan. So a really tangible, clear and succinct plan that enabled me to go, right, actually at any given point in time, if I'm going to work on 3 key things over the next 3 to 6 months, what might that look like? And as again, a blank here, an example, you can see this one is about leadership. So it might be developing greater vision and purpose, better connection with my teams, and then how do I improve performance for myself and my teams? And then you say, right, what do I want? What's the time scale? And what are the key actions I'm going to take to make those happen? It's a really nice way to get a tangible, practical plan that takes the kind of strategic career plan, and breaks it down into a shorter time horizon and gives you more tangible actions. And I found those 2 tools really useful. You don't have to use them both, but I found a combination of the 2 has been really practically for me, it keeps me on track and gives me that joined up version towards the long-term thinking that I want as well. So that's development planning. It's quite practical tools, which again, as I say, I'll share with you today. There's one other thing I just want to share, and then we'll open up some rooms for discussion. So I don't know if anybody's heard of Jim Rohn. He's not with us anymore, unfortunately, but he was one of like the early success coaches. So he trained people like Tony Robbins. He was a mentor for a lot of people that are around today and really successful in kind of business and success coaching circles. And I love this. He's got loads of quotes. This is one that I really like. The ultimate reason for setting goals is to entice you to become the person it takes to achieve them. It's not just about the achievement of the goal, it's about who you become in the process, so that you have that capability to take with you elsewhere. And that's really, really, I love that. It's such a great way of looking at it. And I remember when I first read this quote, I kind of stopped me in my tracks. I'd never thought about it like that. I was always chasing the goal. And actually, when you start to think about it, when you think it's about your capability, completely changes the way you think about how you set goals and why you go after things. Really, really useful. So let's talk about self-coaching. And I really love this simple win, learn, change model. And if you've seen this before, it's an opportunity to recap on it. If you haven't, it's a great opportunity just to think about how we self-coach. And the 3 questions we ask are in that win, learn, change. So in that order, first question, what's working or what's gone well, right? What went well this week? That's the question I asked myself on a Friday, right? What went well this week? Second question, what did I learn? So there's always things that I wasn't quite expecting, and that's the nature of relationships and business, right? So there are always things I wasn't expecting. So what did I learn? And that's the stuff I wasn't expecting. And then third, okay, what will I change? So that model's really useful. Now, we ask it in that order intentionally, because when we say what went well, we get a positive response, whether it's from us or other people. Okay, so we start with, okay, that's really good. It makes me feel good about the answers. Second question, what did I learn? Is not saying what's gone wrong, right? Because that triggers us. We're saying, right, what did I learn? And then that opens me to want to say, right, based on what I learned, what do I need to change going forward? And that is a really simple structure for coaching yourself or your teams in different situations can be really powerful. So these three questions are really useful. And I have a diary marker every Friday in my diary. So I'll pull that forward to today, about 4 o'clock on a Friday. I have a meeting with myself, 15, 20 minutes, and I answer these questions for myself on a week. And the whole idea here is just giving me a way to think and reflect about the week so that I don't just keep repeating the same week year after year, right? But also to start to think about how I'm going to improve and evolve within my business. And I just capture them and document them in a OneNote file. And I reflect on the previous week, reflect on the week that I'm in. And I try and keep a log of the actions so that going forward, this is something that becomes just part of my, integrates into my development. So it's a Friday afternoon, about 4 o'clock, 20 minutes once a week. And the difference that makes to me and the improvements I make within my business is quite incredible. But it's a habit that compounds. So we create these habits that compound for us and they really make a difference. Okay. Final quote. I love this quote from Bill Gates. So we all need people who will give us feedback. That is how we improve. If it's good enough for Bill Gates, it's good enough for me. Right. Okay. So I hope you found that useful as just some context for your discussions. I'm now going to open up our breakout rooms. So let me just find, here they are, find the breakout rooms, and we'll give you a chance just to have a conversation. We've got 9 people today, so we've got, actually, hopefully that's a perfect number. So we've got 9 people today, which should give us 3 in each room. Yes, there is 3 in each room. So I hope you enjoy these conversations. I'll give you, we're at 25 past. I'll give you until 22, which is about 15 minutes. So everyone will get a chance just to share what you're thinking around development. You can think about this through 2 lenses, for yourself and for your teams that you manage or clients that you're working with, if that's appropriate. And then think about, right, what changes you need to make and how can you improve this going forward so it helps you and your team and your customers. And then when we regroup in 15 minutes, I'll just invite someone from each group just to share the themes of your discussion. So if someone could take a few notes in each room, that would be great. And I'll just invite you to share those back. How's that? Is that all right for everybody?
Yep.
Good. Everybody's nodding. Perfect. Thank you. Right. Let me open the rooms and enjoy your discussions. I'll see you back here in about 15 minutes. See you then. Thanks, everybody, for those discussions. I hope you enjoyed talking through your thoughts on this topic with your peers. So let's go group by group. We'll just take some feedback on headline themes. I'll do it group by group. So room 1 was Beth, George, and Dorcas. Who'd like to share from your group?
Yeah, I don't mind feeding back, Justin.
Yeah, thanks, George.
No problems. Key points for us that we talked about as a worthwhile conversation. I think first and foremost, the webinar was a proper punchy title. So if you're a salesperson and it's about focusing on growth, you're straight away getting most of our attention because that is the buzzword, right? Whether it's week on week, month on month, year on year. So that was the first point. And then we started discussing budget, because we talked about growth being a buzzword, investment being a buzzword. And then most of us would probably allocate some sort of budget. And my boss of business owner would probably call it a budget, not a target, of course. But just how to allocate that. There's so much some of the options, whether it's technology, whether it's data and analytics, whether it's customer retention, whether it's networking, whether it's an event. And sometimes, to try and get a little bit of guidance, or is there some sort of, I guess I'm asking for a funky model to help with that side of things. So I'll let you pause on that one. And then the third discussion point and final discussion, more of an action. Beth very much stated that to avoid being on the treadmill of rinse repeat every week, Monday to Friday, she's absolutely going to ring fence this 20-minute period at the end of a working week and pose those 3 questions to herself, bish bop bosh. So a couple of points, but the main one's probably a big body of discussion on investment, I suppose.
Yeah, so it's when you say investment, George, do you mean investment,
resource,
how to find the investment and resource to do development?
Yeah.
So I'll be interested to hear the group's thoughts on that. I tell you what, I won't answer that straight away. We'll
fine.
That, George, if that's all right. I've got some ideas, but it'd be interesting to hear what the group think as well. Yeah, great. Thanks, George. Anything else from your group? Anything else that came up? Anything, Beth? Anything that you thought was useful?
I think George has pretty much covered all our key points, but yeah, it's definitely interesting. So like the things you say are so relatable, and it makes you want to go and give it a go and see where you can sort of be 12 months down the line just from doing this like 15-minute reflection period, because it does obviously make a big difference, because that is the key to the growth side of it.
Yeah, thanks, Beth. Yeah, you're right. And it's, as I look back on my career, it was having a plan and then spending some regular time working on the plan. And to your point, George, about investment, in my early days, a lot of it was me, but reading books, reflecting on what I wanted to do, reaching out to people in my network, having mentors. Yeah, there was definitely some formal development that helped. But I always say, even in sessions like this, when I run sessions with clients, the real impact happens outside of these workshops. These are opportunities to get off the treadmill, think about what you want to change, make a commitment to change. But the real action happens when you go, right, I'm now going to do something about that day to day. That's when the real impact happens. Brilliant. Thank you, George. Thank you, Beth. So room 2 was Heidi, Eust, and Kerry. Who'd like to share back?
Yeah, do you want me to?
Yep, that's fine.
So
Thanks,
we discussed really, I think we already use the 70-20-10 model, and we find that a very, I suppose, a very easy framework to be able to have those development conversations with our team, and also it puts it into perspective for them, because they all want courses, they all want paid education, they all want to do, this course, that course, but then when you're actually working with somebody on their development plan, first and foremost, if they actually take the time to do their part of the development plan, really shows how keen they are, and they're the people that you want to sort of capture. Working on the 70% of the time, really, it's about making them aware that it's not about the course, it's not about actually this paid education, it's about cross-functional business opportunities and projects, and how can we give you the exposure in order for you to be able, because it's here in the business. I think also role modeling the importance of protecting time. If your team look up to you, then you need to be role modeling that behavior to say, I protect time, I've got a development plan, and this is kind of what I'm working towards. Good point. We said it's very easy that people sort of will always park self-development because it's a busy period, or because something's happened, or just appointments, whatever it may be. But again, it's about, I suppose, giving the team that, it sounds daft, but that permission to protect your time, and out of office on, remove your voices, noises, just head down, because it's not just about the day to day, it's about looking up and beyond of where you want to be. And I think also it's about your team and yourself understanding when you are most creative. So when in the day am I most creative? When in the day is my thinking time? Or when do I know that I flag and tire and maybe don't make the best decisions? And I think that's always good to reflect on.
Yeah, I completely agree, Heidi. And then start to structure your day around those peaks and troughs in performance. It's such a great opportunity. That I completely agree, because and most people don't realize it. So they just they ram their day full of meetings, without thinking about actually, can I restructure this and reorganize it in a way that's most beneficial for you and your energy, but also your performance and the contribution you make to the business. Yeah, very good. And you're right, and I love the bit about the role modeling, because it's another point that as leaders, our teams will do what we do, not what we say.
Yeah,
so absolutely important. They do what we do, not what we say. Yeah, love that. Thanks, Heidi. Excellent. Anything else from your group? Anything else that anybody wanted to add?
Did I miss anything?
No, I don't think so. I know Kerry is muted here, but it worked on the actual group that we had, so we straight it doesn't work here. I think in general, it's like, what I found is like, it's hard to make the time for it, and we discussed how we approach that. So Heidi has like the block at the last Tuesday of every month, I believe it was, like a 3-hour blog where everybody can focus on their self-development, where basically everybody shuts down and actually focus on what they're doing, go for a walk, anything like that, which I think was very, very strong approach. So I think that what we looked at, Kerry has a very strong morning routine of making sure there's some time there to do some self-reflection, and I think that's also impressive. And I think that's something that you need to build in. That's something that I struggle with like making sure I have enough time for it, and the weeks just fly by. So that was helpful. Yeah,
thanks, Joost. And there's a couple of things there, isn't there? Because if you look at the research on things like meditation and mindfulness, and I'm not going to go into meditation, but mindfulness is really important. The more time we create for space in our diaries, the more creative and innovative we are. When we ram our days from meeting to meeting, the brain's creativity is just stifled. So we have to create that space. Second thing, you've seen that, I'm sure you've all seen the YouTube video of the professor in the laboratory talking to his students with the jar.
Yeah.
And he puts the rocks in the jar, and he says, right, is it full? Yeah. Then he puts pebbles in. Is it full? Yeah. Then he puts sand in. Is it full? Yeah. Then he puts water in, right? And the whole idea is, if you don't put the rocks in first, if you don't put the time in your diary to really focus on development, the sand and the pebbles just fill it up, and you'll never get to it. So we have to get those rocks in the diary, schedule them in advance. And if your diary's round for the next 3 months, start it in June. Don't worry, just start getting them into the diary so that you know that you've got that protected time. Really good. And I've got a round of applause from Kerry. Thanks, Kerry. Great conversation. Thank you, everybody. Final group was Christina, Seraph, and Steve. Who'd like to share back from your group?
I'm happy. We actually had such a good conversation, and we didn't actually get to the end of who was going to present. So, I mean, I don't know, Christine, do you want to go, or are you happy for me to start it? I'll start it because
go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Thanks.
So, I mean, I think, Justin, first of all, it's great to be part of this. I think that the structure was really interesting. The thing that I think came to us when we were just talking about changing the dynamics of a team was this whole idea of the self-reflection, which the last group just touched on. This kind of approach where people, your point about thinking every Friday, which I thought was great, about what have I learned? What were the wins? What would I change? And then, reversing that back into people's development, making them think in a certain way, taking the time as well is really important. And as you know, I've been through some coaching stuff recently, and we don't do enough of that, as you said earlier about planning. But this whole idea of individuals, leaders as well, self-reflecting and thinking about what could I do better? What should I be doing next week? What could I do better tomorrow? And I think that's half the battle, because that then creates a culture of self-development, and that then people start to take ownership of things and start to think about, how would I move the business forward? And this is what Christina, Seraph, and I were talking about. People coming to them in their leadership group saying, what can I do to do, I've seen an issue and this is how I think we should fix it. And if that applies to the business, it can also apply to the way they work, their development, the things they learn within the business. So I think for us, that was the biggest thing that we took from this, because I think that culture of self-reflection and development is the key to growth really as well.
Yeah, that's really, you're right, Stephen. Sometimes it sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it, to slow down and create time for yourself. rather than just cracking on and doing stuff in the business. But actually it's the counterintuitive stuff that's usually the most effective. You know, they say don't follow the herd, don't do what everyone else is doing, don't do what 81% of people are doing, which is don't make time for your development. Do what the top 10 to 20% of people do, and it makes a real difference to your performance. Yeah, great reflection. Thank you, Steve. Excellent. Anything else from your group, Christina? Anything?
No, that was everything for me.
Yeah. No, good. Thank you, Steve. Anything, Seraph? Anything? No, all good. Okay. Thank you, everybody. I hope you've enjoyed these discussions. So I love this the way that we structure these. So some principles, discussion with your peers, and then sharing back, learning in every 3 of those different sections. Thanks so much. So in our final couple of minutes, just a couple of things I'd like to share with you before we close, if I may. Let me start sharing my screen. So I wanted to talk about, I mentioned our toolkits earlier. So we have this, sorry, I mentioned our scorecard earlier. We have this scorecard called the Coaching Leader Scorecard. In fact, I'm going to go off presentation mode so that I can drop a couple of links in. If you haven't taken it and you'd like to, the scorecard, I'm just going to put the scorecard link in the chat. It's a really useful way to just assess your leadership, and in particular, think about how you're leading your teams, how effectively you're coaching versus just directively managing people. So it's a really useful tool. We use it in programs, get lots of good feedback. And then from there, within our programs, we also use what we call this toolkit, which is a toolkit full of different assets and documents that help you start to think about how you structure and develop your teams. In the fight, you'll see the bottom here, the hero stage, we've got the strategic development plan and this development action plan. These are the 2 documents I'll send you after today's session. But the toolkit has lots of different documents in there around how we lead our teams more effectively and build a plan. Some of you might have heard me talk about this before, but it's worth restating that, you know, the 5 things that are really important to get in place in order to lead your teams, become effective as a leader. How do we create success? We need 5 things. We need confidentiality. We need to be able to have conversations that don't go any further, because we can't have those conversations with our teams. Sometimes we can't even have them with their own managers. We need a community of people that get what we're going through, so that support is there for us, because we have that empathy. We need collaboration, so we can share ideas and learn ideas. We need challenge to our thinking, because the evidence shows that most of us, the way that brain works, most of us think the same thoughts 90% of the time. Same stuff goes through your head 90% of the time. How do you break that? You break that through having your thoughts challenged, through learning, development, and being part of different communities. And then the final bit is commitment. So, you know, like today's session, we've had some great ideas, some great discussions. What is it that translates that into action? It's the commitment we make to ourselves. So actually, if you can get those 5 things in place, it really does accelerate your leadership development. And then final couple of things. I have a LinkedIn group on this topic, the Coaching Leaders Network, which is a kind of fairly new group. So I'm going to share that in the chat as well. If you're not part of that group, feel free to join it. It's a bit of a random name. It's this 8165144, because LinkedIn doesn't let you name groups. But we're looking at how we build a community here. So every week, as well as sending you a link to this recording, I'll put all of the different recordings into that group. We have weekly polls and posts. We're trying to create a bit of community around this group, so feel free to jump in. There'll be some challenges coming and network opportunities. And I was also wondering whether or not people will be interested in weekly LinkedIn post collaborations. So if you're in that group, you can share your post on LinkedIn and people can then engage with it and support it. So you start to get a bit more engagement on the platform as well. So if you're interested in joining, just click the link and we'll accept you into the group. So and we'll start to build this as a bit of a community link to our programs as well. So I have clients and people from our networking here. So feel free to join us. And then the final thing, I say this every week, so those of you who come every week, you'll know this. If you would like a catch up with me, a one-to-one coaching conversation, and Sarah, thanks for our conversation last week. Really good to have that conversation. Steve, I know we're speaking on Tuesday as well. I know, George, we've had a conversation as well. So thank you, everybody. If you'd like a one-to-one, it's a pretty open discussion. Those of you who have done it with me will know there's no agenda. It's what's important to you. Would you like a discussion about it? And if I can help, great. But otherwise, just the 45-minute conversation very often gives you clarity. So feel free, if you'd like to use that link, gets you straight in my diary. And we'll just cover, what's important for you, where do you want to get to, and what actions do you need to take. Okay, that is everything. We've just gone 5-2, so I've broken my own rule. I'm just going to slow things down now and just say, right, thank you, everybody. Let's finish and wrap up today's session. thanks ever so much for giving me an hour of your time on a Thursday morning. I hope you all have a wonderful Easter break. Congratulations, Heidi, on your week's anniversary. Happy birthday for tomorrow, George.
Yeah,
Hope you have a great 40th. I hope the RV trip goes well for you, Eust. Don't do anything dangerous. Stay on the roads, right? Stay on the roads. And I hope you will have a fantastic weekend, whatever you're doing. And look forward to catching up with you soon. I think our next session is next Friday morning, so maybe see you next Friday as well. All right,
everyone. Cheers,
Thanks,
Justin.
everyone.
Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Have a great weekend. See you. Bye.